Most Bleach fans absolutely loathe the Bount Arc with a burning passion, but I'd argue it's massively overhated. The Bount Arc actually has really good aspects in terms of character development and fixing issues from the main series. However, fans still hate it for a reason. Starting off with what it does right, Bleach's Bount Arc does a fabulous job adding to Uryu's character development where the main series could have done more. In the main series, after Uryu loses his powers, he becomes desperate enough to agree to his dad's conditions to never work with Soul Reapers again in order to get those powers back. This is for two reasons. First, he couldn't help his friends in the Soul Society after he fought Mayuri, and secondly, he couldn't protect himself from a Menos-class Hollow without his powers. These reasons are good enough, but not anything super heavy, just a general feeling of helplessness that's not that deep, but still valid. In the Bount Arc, however, Uryu ends up in a much worse predicament. During this arc, Uryu is trying to fight alongside his friends like Ichigo, Chad, and Orihime, but can't really do anything. Urahara even tells him to his face that without his powers, he'll be useless in battle. If that wasn't bad enough, Uryu makes a new friend in this arc named Yoshino Soma, who joins our heroes in their battle against the other Bounts. But in her battle against the main villain, Jean Karia, she dies even with Uryu unable to do anything to help her. In his desperation, Nemu gives Uryu a tool to restore his powers temporarily. After regaining his powers, he's able to fight alongside his friends and protect Ran Tao, another ally he makes during this arc, before promptly losing his powers again at the very end. This further cements Uryu's desperation by creating a situation where Uryu has to genuinely suffer and even watch a friend die, unable to protect them as a direct result of losing his powers. This way, Uryu is forced to feel a genuine sense of guilt and his helplessness is drastically expanded upon. The Bount Arc creates all this extra emotion while simultaneously expanding on Uryu's relationship and mutual respect with Nemu that the main story created and then pretty much just forgets after the Soul Society arc. On top of this, the inclusion of a device to temporarily restore Uryu's Quincy powers serves as a great way to foreshadow the eventuality of Uryu's powers fully returning. This is in addition to reminding Uryu just how good it feels to be powerful again right before cruelly taking it away. Overall, the Bount Arc tortures Uryu in all the right ways to make the return of his powers feel that much more impactful. Another underutilized aspect of the story the Bount Arc improves upon is actually Ichigo's bankai itself. During the Soul Society invasion arc, Byakuya explains to Ichigo during their fight that just achieving bankai, while impressive, isn't sufficient for a Soul Reaper, because it is difficult to master, and until it is mastered, the user can only handle it for short periods of time before it becomes more of a hindrance in battle than an asset. This is something that we as the audience get to directly see in both Ichigo and Renji's respective battles against Byakuya, when their stamina using bankai runs thin, and that allows Byakuya to get the drop on both of them. Ichigo's Zanpakuto Spirit White Zangetsu even goes as far as insulting Ichigo when he takes over during their fight, calling him an amateur, saying that his bones were getting crushed under his own bankai spiritual pressure. Despite making such a big deal about this in the latter half of the Soul Society arc, the main series doesn't actually have Ichigo struggling to handle his bankai at all after he fought Byakuya. The next time he uses it against Yami, it seems as good as mastered, and we immediately move on to Ichigo struggling with holification. The Bount Arc addresses this problem of Ichigo's bankai, but not in the way we would have expected. Basically, it sets up a situation where Ichigo can't use his bankai in the world of the living for the majority of the arc. It is nice to see Ichigo struggle to master his bankai in a sense, and it's also cool to see more of his shikai, which kind of faded in the background after this, but this isn't an ideal way of handling the situation. What would have been phenomenally better would have been for Ichigo to instead have stamina limits for his bankai, like how he was originally supposed to, like how Renji originally did as well. They could have even thrown in the additional problem of Tensei Zangetsu's power being too great for how little Ichigo could control it at the time. That way, we could have gotten situations where Ichigo has a much more organic transition to mastering bankai. For instance, Ichigo might have problems in which he can't handle long fights using his bankai. The writers could also add that when he uses his bankai near normal humans, their soul gets crushed by his spiritual pressure. Really, the possibilities are endless here, and they kind of fumbled the bag on this one. In light of all these problems that Ichigo's facing, he could have had a training arc with Urahara to control his bankai and truly master its power. This definitely would have given the Bount Arc a lot of much needed justification by having it expand on Ichigo's power in ways that the main series didn't. At the very least, this would have worked better than the lazy option we got of nerfing Ichigo by letting him not use his bankai for half the arc, without an explanation that actually made sense behind it. That being said, the Bount Arc did more about developing Ichigo's bankai than the main series, while also still continuing to foreshadow Ichigo's holification for the next arc. So while the Bount Arc doesn't handle Ichigo's bankai perfectly, it was still a nice touch overall. The main area where this arc falls to the wayside is definitely the absurdly slow pacing of it. During the first several episodes, we don't even see the Bounts at all. It's just a drawn-out side arc where Ichigo and his friends meet some filler characters that overall play a pretty minor role in the story. Even after the Bounts actually show up, the arc still takes way too long to unfold. I mean, seriously, in what universe should a filler arc be 28 episodes when the Canon Soul Society arc that came right before it was only 21 episodes long? This arc really had some interesting aspects like mentioned earlier, but all of the less interesting filler characters and filler plot points really overstayed their welcome while fans were waiting for the Arrancar arc. Overall, this was actually a relatively well-crafted filler arc that genuinely added to the story, particularly in terms of character development and lore developments as well. However, admittedly, it had an egregious amount of unrealized potential that stems from horrendous pacing among other mishandled opportunities. If you or someone you know is watching Bleach for the first time, this arc is definitely worth a try, but if it doesn't click, then absolutely skippable. Compared to most other anime filler, it's actually pretty good. Bleach just has really good fillers in general though, so of course something like this would seem subpar compared to the rest. That being said, what do you think? Do you also think the Bount Arc is underrated, or am I just glazing it? Let me know down in the comments.